Okay, hello. There is not much people here because I guess not many people are interested in revolution. What I'm going to introduce you is not revolution. Anyway, I'm going to take you to a romantic journey to microservices. How to make microservices with Esticade and just some things about microservices in general. Some of you probably know me already. My name is Jaan. I work in many different companies, some of which I can't name. And I've been doing microservices for the past few years and both learning about them and trying to implement them in different ways. Also visited the Microservices conference in London some time ago, and it was quite interesting to learn what other people think about it and why is it a thing nowadays. One thing is that things I might say here might offend somebody. They will probably offend, and I'm totally fine with that, so that's it. Anyway, let's talk about microservices then. Nowadays they are more like a promised land than anything else because everybody does them. Even the shop from the smallest town in Estonia thinks that, oh, maybe we should do our next website with using microservices. And lots of those businesses in Estonia, even those that consider themselves quite big, could easily run their business off from a couple of Raspberry Pis because they really don't have that much traffic. So whether the scalability thing with microservices is a thing or not, this remains to be seen, because I have seen websites running like 10 years old hardware and just doing perfectly fine. But anyway, everybody has decided that let's do microservices, and I guess we will. So the main benefits that many microservices people bring out is that they are scalable. You can easily add more machines under it, and it will be all is good. But yeah, as I said before, we really need that. They are reliable. It means that if some of the services dies, the network doesn't die, and everything else, you can duplicate some services, and there is many options. And this is true. Yes, they are reliable in a large scale. They are easy to enhance. This was idea that because microservices contain a very little code, they are pretty easy to change, and you don't even have to change them. You can just go on, delete the microservice and replace it entirely because you know it does really very few things. And yeah, what developers of course like is that they are very free to choose what technology they want to use for the services. They are not stuck with like Java from 1905. They can actually use technologies developed in 2000, for example, which is outrageous in the developer community sometimes. But there are those problems, and those problems often come up when new companies start implementing microservices. Of course, if you're running every microservice in a huge Docker container with Apache and other 1,000 processes running, then it is going to have somewhat big overhead. The system design can get very complicated in some cases, and turns out it's not very reliable, because if one service dies, the entire network of services that relied upon it actually dies as well. And this is those problems that come out are actually surprisingly common, and people often don't want to talk about them because they don't want to admit that the technology they brought into the house is actually quite tricky beast. So basically, why do microservices suck? Or do they? See what I did there? One of the biggest failure points in microservices and this kind of design in general is the mindset that developers, analysts, project managers, and everybody involved, even designers and cleaning lady. Maybe not so much cleaning lady, but everybody else. It's the things we have been doing for 20 years, 30 years, maybe 10 years or 2 years. And suddenly some people say that you shouldn't do that. You should totally do something else. And yeah, this is not sometimes the easiest thing to pick up. But for example, this reusable code that has been in Java community quite a lot is about building massive things using massive design patterns just to make the code flexible to be used in several different places. But if your microservice does only 5 lines of actual business logic, then do you really need all those factories and singletons? And well, of course, you need sometimes some of them, but in general, I have seen microservice that could be written in a single line of code, written in about 100 Java classes. And if you do that, you end up with a massive service that does business functionality of 1 line. And what are you going to do with this when you decide to change it or remove it? Nobody can read it. It takes 2 weeks to figure out what the hell is it doing. So actually there's a solution for this. Just don't write this. Just write simple code. Write this 1 line and you are done. You're done with the microservice. And it works. Other thing is tight coupling. And this is what happens when you make sure that 2 services are tightly interconnected. And if one of the services changes, it means that you have to change the other service. And in return, this means that you have to change also the 3rd service and maybe 4th service. And all those services are in different teams. And then you have this problem that you have one single fix you need to do, but it goes through several layers of application code, several teams, and you just waste a lot of time. So yeah, to solve this problem is also like don't couple tightly. I don't know what it is, it looks nice. Yes. And the worst of those things, and probably the most important things, is the synchronous mindset. The idea is that I need to do something. I need to do thing X. For this, I need to get data from database. That means I will wait for the data. Basically, I will go and request the data from database. I will wait until it arrives, and then I will do something with this data. And maybe I need some other data from other service as well. Then I will go to this service, ask this data, wait for until this data comes back, and then continue with this task which I had in mind. But the problem is that it involves a lot of waiting. You can, of course, create lots of threads in your application and make 1,000 threads wait all the time. But you could also not be very synchronous, but make things do their small task, finish it, and until something else comes along that needs to be handled, then continue with this. So this same database example is that I need data from database to continue the task. I will put out a request for this data, and I will just forget about it. When the response comes in, a separate piece of code picks up the response and starts doing stuff that was supposed to happen. But during meantime, this thread is free to do whatever it wants, and this might not seem like something very special, but it actually has a huge performance impact when you're doing action systems with lots of data going through. And then you will realize that why is the service so slow? It's using like 1% of CPU, but it's not using CPU, it's waiting. And everything is kind of stuck behind it. But yeah, getting this asynchronous mindset, this is not the easiest thing. Easiest way of doing this, in my opinion, is start writing node.js. First you will hate yourself, but in some time you will start to think asynchronously. Anyway, why I called you all here is Esticade framework. This is a interesting framework. Some people probably ask that what the fuck is it anyway, because I have never heard about it. And that's true, because it's not very visible yet. It was created just a week ago or something like that, published. But it's based on a work previously done somewhere where I can't say it. So it's not out of thin air, but it's as for the code maturity, it's quite new. This Esticade framework is developed by me and also some other people, including this weird guy who is holding the camera on the stick for whatever reason. But yeah, let's talk about it. Technically, what Esticade is a library for node.js, Java, PHP, Python, C#, and all those things. Right now we have JavaScript and Java libraries, and PHP library is coming in next few days probably. Plus other libraries are coming as time progresses. Its idea is that it's super simple. You don't really have to think about networks or threads or whatever. The idea is that you want to create several services that talk to each other, and you just write code that matters, the business logic. It is scalable. It has some tricks up its sleeve that help it scale when you need to spawn new instances. It's pretty easy. It's mostly automatic. It's quite reliable. And yeah, you can read the rest of the slide. I will probably show you examples as well. That would be maybe more interesting. But yeah, right now the main development and the main thing is the JavaScript version, because JavaScript is just really good with asynchronous code. But it has been working in PHP and Java as well, so yes. So let me show you some of the code so you understand why is it easy and why you should use it. Oh my god, how many windows do I have? Let's just do a new project. Just empty project is fine. What is this? Okay, so main place where you start with Node.js applications is always terminal. You do this npm init stuff and stuff, but I don't really care. Just first step, install Esticade library. Yes, okay, that's fine. Next step, create your file, which is apparently not that easy. Okay. Here. This is IntelliJ. It wants me to create Java modules and stuff, not files. Here it is. Basically, the code for, let's write a simple service that basically what it does is add value-added tags for a sum, for example. Let's say that this is something you want to do. You write for a service equals require Esticade, and in parentheses you write the service name. And here we write service on price. How much is value-added tax? 20%, 18, 20. Let's say it's 20. And I think we already have this our service ready. Let's try. It seems to be running. This is a testing tool that is also part of this thing. It looks a little bit better on a screen that is actually has some sort of resolution. What was it? Price. Let's try. So did I send event price? It's using different network. Oh, fuck yes. There is thing that makes those things work. I will show it a little bit later, but first I have to solve this thing. I put it into a wrong directory, this file. Okay, let's try again.
Restart.
Yeah, I didn't try it with this. Start. See if this helps. Oh, it did. So what I did here was that the service is now online in the same network as well, which it wasn't before. You can have different networks, but it's pretty easy to configure. And this service emitted a price for this testing tool, and this calculated this value added text. I think it treated this 42. Is it right? It's numbers. I don't know. Let's try something more complicated. Yes, it's definitely right with floating point error as well. So you have to take it into account when you're doing financial applications that use financial rounding in those cases.
And what if you type charters?
What?
If you type something else beside the numbers, charter.
This right now doesn't. This will probably return null or something. Let's try. Yeah, it returns null. This is because it doesn't have any error handling. But you can, of course, best thing I recommend to do with Esticade is that if you get an event that is not what you want it to be, then just ignore it. In lots of cases, it's actually a better option than just throwing errors. But yeah, you can throw an error as well if event body. How was it done in JavaScript instance of? Are you sure? I think there was like some type of yes, type. Let's just let's log the console. That is like the simplest way. Let's see what happens now. Oh, this is one way of doing it. Other way is saying that invalid number emit an event, for example. Event emits invalid number. Just this is fine. The thing is that I have to restart it as well. thing is that it tracks which events are related to which events. So you don't have to specifically tell that this number is invalid. It's possible to recognize this. And yeah, this is the main core of Esticade is right here. If you want to create service, you just write these lines of code and then it is there, and other services can use it. And you can write several on-handlers for different kinds of events. You can emit events directly, not like these ones are directly a result of an event, the invalid number and price with the VAT, for example. But you can also create emits by some sort of scheduler or whatever. And there is like some more trickiness into it. But do you have any questions so far?
I have a question.
Yeah?
Why not a framework?
What do you mean, not a framework?
Why not a framework? Why existing frameworks don't work for you?
Because they're big.
Even from microservices?
Which frameworks you mean exactly?
For example, to React or something like that.
What?
Or if you're using JS, like having to run like React or any other like ways.
Yes, but thing is that they require lots of work. They require configuration, they require boilerplate. This doesn't require anything. This code literally is what there is. You don't need to configure it because it's automatically configured. And there is more to it, but yeah. More questions? Yeah?
Why don't you use like existing serialization like protobuf? It would also give you type safety. It would allow
Yeah,
you
but that
to-
is the problem with this thing. You're
You
creating.
don't want type safety.
Yes, I don't. Because this will make the service complicated and it makes it tightly coupled.
No,
And-
type safety doesn't make it tightly coupled. Protobuf allows extending messages. That's the whole
It does,
purpose.
yes, but it makes it awfully complicated. And sometimes you just don't have time for it. I understand the good points about protobuf and all of those things. But the point of Esticade is to keep it as simple as possible. So you don't have any massive things you have to learn and understand and change when you want to do something. And it's up to the service to recognize the message. If it is a string, then it has to handle it somehow. And if it's not proper number, then it also has to handle it. But it's not tightly integrated into the clients to know that they shouldn't send a number or they shouldn't add or send an object instead. You can send objects as well. It supports JSON objects. So yeah. Okay. And more questions now? Yeah.
How do the events move? Do you multicast them?
That is very good question. I was hoping that somebody asks it. It uses RabbitMQ on the background. And that is the catch on this whole thing, that you need RabbitMQ running somewhere. There is also another thing that configures this. There is a layout of configuration files, but this is the configuration file here that is using. Can you see that? See it? This is where it does. It has my username and password for my public service right now. So if anybody can create the Esticade service that sends a message to this right now, then go ahead. But anyway, the thing is that why you should use this over just plain old RabbitMQ is that it introduces quite many new things and also removes lots of things from RabbitMQ. Because RabbitMQ itself, this is a message queue protocol. Or it's not protocol, it's an application. It uses AMQP, 9 point something protocol. It has quite many things and lots of things that people don't actually understand, like how to actually handle channels in RabbitMQ. And how do you write multi-threaded code with it and stuff like that. Everything this is hidden from you when you're using Esticade. You just emit an event or catch the event. And it is also not relying on the RabbitMQ protocol. So basically you have like those two methods, mainly on and emit. And if you want to, at some point, replace Esticade, then you can just replace the classes and use whatever else can kind of pass messages on. But yeah, as I said, there is more to it than just this on and emit. For example, there is also emit chain, which is a slightly more complicated thing. For example, let's write it into separate files, then it's a little bit simpler. Let's create another. So let's call it other service because we are really great. Let's use the other VAT calculator service and emit some price like 5,600. And this has on method as well. How was it written? So this is a simple request type thing. What it does, it does the same thing as it did before with this Esticade testing tool, or dummy, or whatever it's called now. It sends a price event and expects price with VAT event back and does something useful with it. There is actually a lot more behind it going on that people often don't even imagine to think about. It wasn't event price, it was event body. Thing is that this is, for starters, it's asynchronous. It's not actually waiting for it. This is asynchronously called when this event arrives. Also, if somebody else, some other service is calculating those prices at the same time, then those prices will never arrive here because there is some clever routing matching behind it based on correlation IDs and correlation block that will make sure that only this service gets this. And this makes it, if you're doing this event-driven stuff, then you will quickly realize that if you want to add a REST API or something in front of it that is synchronous, then you're in trouble. But this kind of stuff makes it really easy to do. So, let's see if it runs. Well, basically what it did is just made a request to the service and returned this response, and that's it. And basically, when I sent this, the Esticade dam should also break it up. If I take this price with VAT here and send like some other number, then this shouldn't be received by this thing. Yeah, it doesn't. Because it only expects messages that are directly response to this event. So, just a short format of doing this. There is other ways of doing it as well. And it can get really complicated with promises that will, I don't think I should get into it right now. So yeah. Any more questions about this?
Question. Did it require any configuration on the Rabbit event, or is it just like install it and it will work?
Okay, this is also a good question. The configuration, I kind of accidentally showed it to you before, but the idea is that
On the server, and I mean, like, server configurations.
from RabbitMQ itself,
Yeah.
no, it sets up its own queues, and Exchange. But technically, you can create a separate vhost for different networks if you have several in your thing. But Esticade.io actually shows how to configure Esticade itself. Where is this thing? There is basically a couple of places where you can put the configuration file. One of them is the configuration file is located by Esticade RC environment variable. Other option is in current folder or any its parent folders. The idea is that when you are doing like some sort of test bench configuration, then you can put the Esticade JSON configuration file in there, and all the services that are located in those folders will be configured by this. There is .esticade RC and home folder, and there is also this one, especially for containers. You can just kind of mount this volume if you don't want to use other methods. And yeah, well, the thing is that most of the services, or all the services you show running was inside this computer. There should be actually another service that is running not in this computer. Let's see if it works. It doesn't anymore. I guess computer went to sleep. I expected that. Okay, questions?
In your code, then you send the message like from other service. You kind of didn't point to the first service which should listen to those messages. How is that? Like how the first server enters, like the other server knows that it has to send messages to this first one. Like you didn't notice I'm sending a message to this server.
Yeah, you're not sending messages to server specifically. What's behind this everything is basically what is called as event network. It's a general place where you send events. It's not about sending to someone, but reporting that something happened, and whoever cares about what happened should pick it up and listen to it. It's a publisher-subscriber model. So basically they are connected to the same network, then everybody will hear about this price event, for example. But only those services that care about the price will do something with
But
it.
if two services subscribe to this price event, like will they two process the same event or the first one?
Both of them will get, except if you have the same service that is running in several instances. In this case, the messages will be round robin. Basically, this is done for scalability. If you're using just on, like here, and if I spawn second instance of the price or this VAT calculator service, then first service will handle the event, and then second service will handle the event, and then first again, and then second. But there is also option of doing like always on. Always on. This will always catch the event, even if there are several instances. But in general, you don't want them to be always on. This will basically guarantee you scalability out of the box. That you can just launch another instance and it will just start doing the same work. But you have to, of course, understand that this is happening behind. Otherwise, you might create something weird with states that will mess this up. But you shouldn't keep states unless you're using the same correlation block, which is another theory. More questions? No? No?
Great question.
Yes.
Is it used by some wide automation services?
Yes, but they can't tell about it. It is, yes. But this Esticade, which is public right now, this is somewhat experimental. So if you're using it, I would always love feedback. There is Esticade.io is the address. There is like ways of contacting. So please let me know if there is some issues with it or anything. I will fix them like quickly.
Maybe one more question. What does the name mean? How did you invent it?
That is a good question. I didn't invent it. Esticade was invented by somebody who didn't know what SDK is. SDK. And he was asked to create a meeting about SDK, and he created a meeting about Esticade. And as it was really funny, I just registered lots of domains with Esticade.io, Esticade.com, and Esticade.net. And since I already had those domains, I created this Esticade library because why not?
When the library is running with all the C# code is in Java, PHP.
There is Java version, yes. This works exactly like the node.js version, except of course it's running on Java. And you can install it with Maven, but it's not in this central repository yet. It will be next few days probably. So basically, if you write the application with Esticade Java, it will connect with Esticade JS applications and stuff, and it's also configured the same way, so it will run directly out of the box. Maybe I can, there was, I think I had, like in this public folder, I had the example of this as well. For example, this. So yeah, it's using the lambda expressions and quite modern way of writing horrible code. So yeah.
No comments.
Yes. I also support no comments quite a lot. But this was just for testing this file. It's not a good example of how to write code, because who writes that kind of thing? And yeah, Esticade PHP is also coming along. It's not public yet, but it will be soon. And yeah, we'll continue with different languages. So the idea is that whatever languages you want to use, considering that we also consider them languages, then you can kind of use this with Esticade. Well, I guess that's it, if you don't have any more questions or stuff.
Thank you, Jaan. And I assume Jaan will be also on our after party, so come and ask questions.
I have one more slide. I have to show this.
You're hiring.
It's very useless, but it's a slide.